Welcome back, everyone. Today is a little bit of a different journey in terms of our video. In terms of what I want to share with you is the image that I put in the background here is a little girl that I generated through using AI at Midjourney, Discord. And she's looking out the window because that's how I felt when I was 4, very close to 5. My parents had bought a new home, their first home. My mother was about 22, my dad was about 27. And it was in San Jose, California. It's before both of my siblings were born, one of them which didn't make it. The firstborn male didn't make it. And I remember sitting in my room by myself with the door shut for some reason. I don't really understand exactly why. But thinking to myself, why am I here? And what's the purpose? Like, why did I have to come back here? What am I supposed to do? Who am I? Who am I really, right? Why am I in this new vehicle? And I thought these things for several reasons, one of which is because I was part of an experiment at the age of 4, almost 5, when I was taken over to my grandmother's, paternal grandmother's home in Livermore, California. And we'll get into that another time, but perhaps that's pretty difficult. That's trauma number one for me. Trauma has been known to kind of break open some of the recessed areas that we more rarely use in our lives. I'm trying to get to where you can also see the image that I generated here. But so that's kind of how things started. And I remember actually having a genuine out of body experience and seeing myself move up through the walls and out close to the ceiling with some beings that took me out of body, probably because, of another traumatic incident, also around the same time. And then my grandmother started teachings, which had to begin before the age of 5. My maternal grandmother, who would come over to our home and spend a day or a couple of days once a week, because we had big family get-togethers in San Jose at my parents' house typically. And that's just to give you just a little tiny thumbnail, just kind of like a little bit of a background. So I was doing a lot of healing work starting in 1983, with mostly in 83 it was just foods for reversing disease, because that's what I had been trained in, right? And I started to call it detoxification, which I got a lot of flack back from people in the mid 80s, people that today have made large amounts of money and lots of, famous applause for speaking about detoxification, helping your body to increase its elimination possibilities and giving it an opportunity of the catalyst to heal. But what they don't frequently talk about is the fact that you can actually use a particular lifestyle, an optimized lifestyle, which includes, I don't know why my forehead looks really weird in here. I just went swimming. You can use a particular lifestyle, an optimized lifestyle, one with nutraceutical foods, the right supplements, and you can do some of the testing like what I offer with HTMA and the KPU and the metabolic and methylation to, improve yourself to such an extent that you can actually really become much more sensory perceptive. So because I then opened a business on February 1st of 03, 2003, and it wasn't really shut down until the whole COVID scamdemic. Um, I had experience which I probably otherwise wouldn't have had, where I was going in and I had table clients that were coming for bodywork, massage, energy. And because word got around that at least once a week, in a very free flow, sort of, flow state way, I'm doing my work as doing a massage, and I'd pick up psychic medium, medical intuitive, auditory insights, basically sensing the field. And it happened so often that where I rented my business space at Tranquility Day Spa in the last 4 or 5 years of all those years in Minnesota, um, the gals that were also booth renters, they were either hair, fingernails, or massage people, would just, be at the counter when a client would come out of mine, and I would walk them out and they would pay at the counter before they left. They'd just be like, I don't know how she does it, but this happens all the time. So I want to share today with you something that happened. My son, who's now deceased, wanted to, once he graduated high school in 2014 at Cloquet High School, he wanted to go with his girlfriend, Christina, in Los Angeles, where her mother had moved many years prior from Minnesota and where we had been from. So he knew going on road trips with me to California in what we call our home. And so it was days before Christmas. He had graduated. He made the decision he was going to go live out there until she finished her senior year because she was a year behind him. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to take this little tiny travel trailer. I'm going to flip it when I'm out there, drive back with just our big expedition. And I ended up taking a woman who was in her young 20s who hadn't traveled at all, and taking a younger man with me as well, who I knew pretty well for so many years. And we went on the trip, dropping off Zawa, my son, at the Minneapolis airport, about 2.5 hours away from our home, on a terrible snowstorm evening. But anyway, I'd just gotten new tires for the trailer. So I'm pulling a trailer, getting him to the airport just in time because everybody was running late with all their packing because we planned to be gone for weeks, if not a month. Just I'd figured I'd take the whole month of January off and spend some time with him out there and spend some time back home in Santa Cruz, California. And we would just have fun. We brought the dogs along. We had everybody's stuff and we have food packs. So it was going to be just a great low budget road trip, which are things I love to do. So instead of taking the straight route like I normally do across country to make it quick, and you take 35 and you kind of jet over to the same predictable states, I went a different route and I ended up going through Oklahoma and then down into New Mexico. And on Christmas Eve night, we spent the night behind a dumpster at a place kind of like a gas station for truckers and stuff like that. And then the next day we rolled into town. It was absolutely beautiful, especially after the 2 days of white knuckling it on the road because I had to go so slow through ice and wind and rainstorms that were just really terrible. So I looked and I said, "There's a Love's truck stop right on the outskirts of, there in New Mexico." And the three of us got out because Zawa had already flown to Los Angeles. He'd already made it there safely, and now it was the three of us, Jasmine, Ox, and myself. And so I said, "You know what? They've got showers. I've never used a truck stop shower, but I am going to go take one. I just need to I've just been stressed out going through the storm because the other two were not capable of driving with the travel trailer. She was too inexperienced and he didn't have a license. It just wasn't an opportune time to put somebody else behind the wheel. So I pulled through without sleep and just kept us pushing through. Excuse me. And so when we got in there, I thought, I don't really know how to operate it, but it was a push button code door. So I went over and I paid for a couple showers, and Jasmine paid for hers. And I couldn't get the door to open with the code that they gave us on the receipt. And so we were going to take turns, Ox and I, in the shower. And so this man came over, real dark hair, probably late 50s, early 60s, or around my age right now. And I said, "I can't get the door to open. I've never used the showers before, but I just cannot wait to enjoy one." And as he and I and Ox and Jasmine said, "Bye, I'm going to go get in the shower." I said, "Okay, bye, hon. Have a good time," because they were timed from the time he bought the receipt. Um, we were feeling kind of grody, and she was actually having some tears because she said, "I can't believe I spent the night behind a dumpster and it's Christmas Day." And I said, "But you're going to be having Corvos Rancheros at a great little restaurant, quaint little restaurant where we met a woman who also feels that she's a shaman." But let's back up to the Love's truck stop in New Mexico. So when the man came over to give us some help, all of a sudden I hear, because hearing is my auditory, right? Different than schizophrenia, different than mental health. It's been confirmed hundreds and hundreds of times all of my life. So I've gotten a real good trust with it. Excuse my hair, but I came out of the shower and it was freezing, and I threw a hat on my head and a scarf around me, and now I get in the house and it's 80 degrees in here. So go figure. And so I hear the word Tuolumne, and I'm thinking, I don't even I think I've heard that word maybe twice in my life. I think it's a place in California. And they said, "Ask him about Tuolumne." Crap, here we go. And Ox is going, "Oh, for crying out loud, can't we just get the shower and get going, keep it real?" And I'm like, "I need to do this, so go ahead and go without me. You can get in the door and get started." He said, "No, I'll wait." So the man looks at me and kind of pauses for a moment, like, what the actual, hell, right? And I said, and so I hear something else again, second stream. Yep, he wanted to be a police officer, but so I finish the second part and I say, apparently you wanted to be a police officer, but, and as the man goes, well, I lived right on the outskirts of technically what was inside Tuolumne, but very close to outside of that. And I did want to be a police officer. And then, bam, really quickly I hear, except for the fact that there was a murder. And so I look over and I'm like, he does look like he probably spent some time in prison, which, Ox had also. So no offense to anybody who spent time in prison. That's just something that happens sometimes. And um, he said, you don't need to worry. I'm not going to hurt you or anything like that. And I just said, actually, I'm not worried. I'm just sharing with you what I've heard. I heard about Tuolumne that you wanted to be a police officer. And they go, he'll be able to do that next time. I said, okay. So apparently, next time, next go around, if you come back, if you believe in that or whatever, I don't mean to be offensive, but apparently next time you'll be able to do that, because this is obviously some different work. I said, hey, this took obviously more time than I'm sharing with you because I'm trying to put it into a little nutshell. But these have happened for me hundreds and hundreds of times from the time I was 4 or 5 in that bedroom. And over that time, one thing that I want to make really clear, because I want to cut it here before 15 minutes, we're almost at 12, and not make it too long for people. I'm not putting out content because I want to be attractive, because I know I look so fine, whatever. There was a time in my life that I felt pretty comfortable with my looks. And right now, I really don't, but I'm healthy and I'm breathing and I'm healing. My heart is so affected. You have no idea. Maybe you do. So for me, it takes a lot of balls to get on here because I just feel like a fraction of myself that I'm getting there. Okay. So that's what's what. So let me just finish here. Take a drink. Because I had a business where I probably worked 14,000 hours per year, you know, if you figure that I saw maybe 3 hour and a half clients a day, 5 days a week, you can do the math and figure it out. And I'm taking a client into a quiet treatment room and they're on a table, they're relaxed, and probably 75% of people want a nice quiet session and they kind of go into almost like a trance like state, a meditation type state, where they're just really relaxed. They're in just a beautiful state. Music is very gentle. I had streaming music playing, candles going, lights were turned down where it wasn't dark, but it was, you didn't feel like you're under a bright light like you go to the doctor's office or something like that. And people often told me my whole life, you have the gift. You've been so gifted. I mean, this is definitely a gift that you have. And in the beginning, when I heard it, I thought, a gift? What are you talking about? Right? Well, first of all, I don't do religion of any kind. I'm deeply spiritual, but I don't do organized religion. And so I didn't get offended when people said that, when my clients especially said that, especially in little tiny Cloquet, Minnesota, right? But I finally came to, what could I retort? What could I say back that people would understand what I meant? And so eventually I said, this is development. And that means anyone can do what I do. Whatever I can do, just about anyone. I mean, there could be some physical, mental, The reason I called it a psychic reading, which is kind of a turnoff to me, but is because psychic is an extension of psychological, right? The psyche, the brain mind, however you want to call it, right? We're using the brain mind, the sensory perception, which is so sedated in people that were born after 1975, 1980. And my role, something I'm especially good at, is brain health, mental health, psychic perception, sensory perception. I don't call myself a psychic medium because it just doesn't make sense. And now we're going over 15 minutes. So I'm going to get ready to conclude here. There is a huge difference between an educator, thank you, Daniel Robinson, and a performer. I'm not Long Island Medium. I'm not Anthony Williams, AKA Medical Medium. I'm not any of these people that have paid Hay House or other entities to balloon them up and make tons of money, of which they pay back to the agency that promoted them. I don't have AI writing my books. I write my books myself. I'm giving you the truth. You could probably call the city of Cloquet, and if some of the people are still there, that as of the pandemic, they could tell you, yep, that was well known. I was hated by several, including pastors' wives, who said, she must work with the devil. Look what she's doing. She couldn't, right? But it'd be one thing if you said, this is basically pseudo-psychological, or this is psychological, this is like schizophrenia. You're hearing voices. We already know that's a mental health problem. And it's another thing if you've confirmed it with hundreds and hundreds of people. So I tell people, I would have clients come in and they'd say, I've heard about what you do. And they would book a massage because I never charged anyone one single penny for any kind of sensing the field. I don't like psychic reading, but for purposes of everyone understanding, psychic is connected to psychological, like I said before. So the points I want to make here is that you can develop, and I help people to develop. I help people to understand their spirituality versus organized religion. If you're in organized religion, that's up to you. You can, completely participate in that because that's your choice in life. You have that choice right now, right? I can go deep, 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 deep down the rabbit hole on many, many different subjects, including sensory perception. I understand MK Ultra. I understand sexual trauma. I understand many, many different aspects of life because I'm 63, because I've lived through them, and because I've had to pull myself back up from despair and grief and traumatic grief alone when I feel like the majority of the world is not at all in alignment with the bubble I live in, okay? So I like to live in a bubble of let's be real, let's be natural, let's be as healthy as we possibly can. And I know people want to be in that bubble per se, but are you experienced, right? Jimi Hendrix, right? Are you experienced? Have you ever been experienced? So the key takeaway nugget, whatever I share with you about readings and insights, because I have a first book published called My Side of the Table. And it was kind of ghostwritten, or it was ghostwritten by a woman who's of the Catholic faith. And I feel like it was minimized. And I'm going to share with you through videos. I was going to say something different, but I'm going to share with you through videos some of that content. And I'm going to encourage you to begin to understand what your abilities are, because part of all of the occupation, occultism, and Oculus, you're in a vehicle, occupying a vehicle, where a lot of information, knowledge, and wisdom has been occulted, meaning it's been hidden from you. It's been sequestered. It's been removed. The narratives have been changed. We see this with Antiquitech. We see this with mud floods. We see this with resets. We see this with epidemics and pandemics. But it takes a while to have this long journey in life to be able to overstand, not understand, word, sound, power, and healing and optimization and sensory perception without it being too woo-woo and magical thinking and, out there, which is where sometimes we begin. We're like, oh, it feels awkward. We're not totally comfortable with it yet. But stay with me, because I'm using subjects in videos right now so that it will build on a repertoire of us being able to get conversant and be able to get very comfortable with other subjects as I get more comfortable in front of the screen. looking at myself, which is just not my favorite thing to do at this moment. I do love myself. I have a healthy amount of self-love. That's why I'm still alive and breathing. That's why I'm back here, and I intend to bring you some really wonderful content that we need to build because it's not heard every day. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. This was recorded on 11/11/2024, and I hope that you're making it a real special day. Think about Janus, Janus, and the gates and the doors and the openings, and look for what you need, where you need to go. All right, be well.